Check, check. Let's see. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Check. Am I on? Yeah.
Sick, man. How you guys doing? So this is, I don't know what episode this is. I say that every time. I lost track. But today we have Andrew Klein from probably one of my favorite bands, actually my favorite hardcore band, Strife.
Thank you.
Andrew, how you doing?
Good. Good
So,
to be here. Thanks for watching.
Unfortunately, I can't see a live Strife show, so I guess we'll just talk about Strife because Strife's the best hardcore band from the best city in the best world, in the world.
There we go.
Let's start diving into Strife. So Strife's been a band since early '90s.
Yeah, I think we started probably 1990, 1991. I think our demo came out in '91. Yeah, very early '90s. We grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, right between LA and Oxnard, right in the middle.
So essentially, you guys are, for the most part, a Los Angeles band. You guys are playing. At that time in the '90s, like for when I started growing up going to shows, all the shows were in like Riverside, the IE.
Yes.
When Strife first started, where was like the shows primarily at?
So when we first started, well, our first shows we ever played, actually, we booked ourselves. First show we ever played, we were called Stand As One at the time. We booked it at Rick's High School. We went to Continuation High School in Moore Park. And it was...
You guys put a show at his high school?
At his high school, and it was a nighttime show. So we booked the show, and it was like...
They just didn't give a fuck?
I guess not. It was Outspoken. It was Stand As One, which was us. Monster Club, which became Still Life.
Mm-hmm.
Downcast was on the bill, but they didn't end up playing. That was the first real show we ever played. It was at Rick's High School. It was I think it was a benefit for Last Chance for Animals, and it was $3. You bring a can of food or whatever. And it was sick. A couple hundred kids, and it was great. Actually, not only did we play Rick's High School, we actually played Chad and Sid's high school, played Westlake High School, and actually the back cover of the My Fire Burns On 7-inch is from Westlake High School. It's from our show there. That we booked there again.
Was this normal? Because right now I'm trying to think of me playing at my high school. And
was it normal? I mean,
it sounds impossible. The idea of trying to play at my high school.
I don't think it's normal. I think for us, it's there was nothing where we lived. Right? There was nothing. We grew up in a suburb. We're outside LA, and we'd go to shows. We'd drive from Thousand Oaks to Riverside. We'd go to Spanky's Cafe. Right?
Yeah.
And on a Friday night, that could take you 3 hours. And that's what you would do to go to a show. So if you wanted to build your scene, right?
Yeah.
You got to book your own show. So our next show is even crazier. And I just drove by there. So we booked a show, and it was Chain of Strength, Outspoken, Drift Again. We were still Stand As One. And I think Have No Part played, and maybe this band Groundwork from Arizona. Mm-hmm. And we booked that. And do you know, in a kind of an apartment complex, they have the community pool, and sometimes there's a little
that centerpiece?
It's so there's a community pool, and then there's a little clubhouse. We booked the show there. It was in Moore Park, and it was a place called the Peach Hill Clubhouse. And I don't know how that show happened, but somehow we booked that. We brought in a stage, we brought in a PA, and convinced Chain of Strength and Outspoken to come play a show in the middle of the suburbs, and it was sick. But that's all we had. There was no nightclubs. Eventually, we would book our own shows in Simi and Moore Park. There was a place called Cheers that was a bar in Simi that did shows for a number of years, maybe 2 years. I think their first big show was a No Effect show, and then we did Strife, Outspoken, Endpoint Ashes. Played there twice, and then there was a place called Paradise Bay, which we booked a show. It was Strife and Lifetime, and I want to say it was the first ever West Coast show for the Bouncing Souls.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was in Simi. And again, we just booked it ourselves. But yeah, so we grew up in Thousand Oaks. We were really close to the valley. So we were about 20-minute drive from the valley. We were close to Oxnard. So growing up, our first shows were a place called the Country Club in Reseda. And saw a ton of legendary bands from like Gorilla Biscuits, Judge, Instead, Bad Religion, Circle Jerks, NoFX, Neurosis, like every band. I saw Chain of Strength, Infest, Social Justice, from MDC, like punk, hardcore, metal, hip hop. Would play there. I wouldn't go to a ton of those shows at that time, but like you'd have shows that'd be 1,000 people. And it would be like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, but it'd be like you'd have a show, and let's say it's Bad Religion Instead, right? And then it'd probably be Walk Proud and Social Justice or whatever, But like there would be 1,000 kids, and it would be hardcore kids, metalheads, skinheads, right? Skaters and cholos.
Yeah.
And if you were into punk or hardcore or metal, you'd go to every show because there was maybe a show like that.
It's funny because I was doing an interview with Ron, who books he books a bunch of punk bands.
Final Conflict.
Ron from Final Conflict, and I was asking him, I was like, dude, when I looked at those early flyers, like, so where I grew up in Riverside, Spanky, Showcase, The Barn were like the staples of like, for me at the time, were like staples of like punk and hardcore music in general. Yeah. But I was asking, I was like, dude, it's crazy to look at those flyers and you just see like such wild mixed, like.
Yeah, shows were way more diverse. It wasn't divided. If you were into heavy music, first of all, there wasn't. You didn't have the luxury of like, not right now, but last year, right? Yeah. When there were shows, I could literally see a hardcore show every night of the week. Yeah. In the LA area. Yeah. So like, if you're into hardcore, you'll pick and choose. You're like, I'm into straight edge hardcore. I'm into metallic hardcore. I'm into whatever type of hardcore. Yeah. You'll go to those shows. And when I first started going to shows, if you were into hardcore and there was a show, doesn't matter, you're going to go. Yeah. Like, because there was a show, maybe you went to 2 shows a month. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're hitching a ride down to Spanky's, it's like, we would go to everything. So whether it was like Bad Brains and Leeway, or it was MDC, or if it was Circle Jerks, but we liked all that stuff too.
But what makes me like, same question I asked Ron, like at what point did you notice that like everything started becoming a little bit more secluded as far as shows? And I mean by that, it's like, you look at those lineups and it was just so diverse that by the time I came around, in the early 2000s, it was straight punk shows, straight hardcore shows. Yeah. And mostly it's at Showcase. That's like, you either went to one or the other. Yeah. You have been fairly active in music ever since, I've been involved. Yeah. But it's like, what?
I would say.
Did you notice the change that like, it went from mixed bills to not?
I would say probably like the 2000s. I think the more bands there are, and the more bands there are on tour, and then the internet, right? So like, you can book a tour now, and it'll just be a package, and it could be like 3 bands that are very similar, and they're gonna play in every city, and maybe not even have an opener, right? We have 4 bands on package, and not have an opener. That's not unheard of, right? In the 90s, like, you would drive cross country, play a show, and you're the only band from California, and you're playing with these weird mixed bills, and like, for Strife as a band, like, we really liked, at a certain point, we really liked playing with very unexpected bands outside of our genre. For us, we really wanted to kind of spread like, not only like the straight edge message, but just like a positive message to kids outside of our world, and kind of turn people on to hardcore that might not necessarily go to a hardcore show. Yeah. So we toured with Incubus. We toured with AFI. We toured with Voodoo Glow Skulls. We did a European tour with Sepultura. So like, all of these bands, you might not necessarily think they would have any association with hardcore. like play with Dance Hall Crashers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
but it's crazy because you know, the older I got, the more I got to meet people and have conversations with these dudes, and it's just like yeah, man, like you know, I was talking to Andreas the other day. He's like, yeah, man, like I used to listen to Strife as a kid, you know, like
yeah,
it's like
yeah, and that was kind of the thing, and I even like you know I tell this story sometimes. It's like your guitar player Brian.
mm-hmm.
Brian kind of got into hardcore because he saw Strife open up for Descendants.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? He's like, oh, I went to see Descendants and Guttermouth if Hanson played, and Strife opened the show. And I don't think he had any idea what we were, right?
Yeah, because when we were younger, people don't know, Brian looked like a fucking punk.
Yeah.
Know? Like, but it's you know, it's funny because, you know, when I first started getting involved in music, Strife was like, you know, a combination of Strife and fucking, you know, going to the showcase, and I was just like, this is like the band, you know? And it was cool for me and Brian and like our little like network of dudes. We're like, we fucking loved it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and the showcase like had some of the most legendary shows of all time, like.
But like, so going back to like the start of Strife, you know, when I was a kid, I wanted to sound like this band, or I wanted to play in a band like this band. There's always that reference. When Strife started and looking and thinking of the years, I can't really like pinpoint what you guys are trying to sound like.
Yeah.
There really isn't something I can pinpoint it to.
Well, it's interesting. I think we took a lot of different influences. Like, so our drummer, Sid, was actually from Riverside. He grew up in Riverside. He played in a punk band called SDI, which was Society Defeated by Ignorance. They played Spanky's, like, before I ever went to Spanky's, like, they would play with Agnostic Front. They played at Spanky's. They would play with whatever. And some of the earliest shows at Spanky's, his band played, because they were the local Riverside band. It was, like, SDI. It was a band called Twisted. And there was a band called Malicious Intent, which Curtis from Transgender sang in. And so Sid would play with those bands as well. So Sid moved to Thousand Oaks, and he moved next door to one of my best friends. So one day we were out there skating, and I meet this Sid, and Sid, you know, he's a punker, like he was a punk kid, and he's wearing like blue Doc Martens, and you know, he sees us skating, we start talking, and we start talking about hardcore, and you know, he goes up to his room, he's like, check this out, he brings me the Minor Threat live at Buff Hall, like VHS. He said, check this out, and so I borrow that from him. We become friends. And at that time, there's zero hardcore kids. Like, where I live. There's like one kid at my school, this kid, Jeff Moore, who is like 1 year older than me, and he's like into punk and hardcore. And then there's Sid, who just moved from Riverside. And then there's like kids into punk, but there's no hardcore kids at all. So we start going to shows. We go to the country club. Sid's a little, he's like 2 years older than me. And we meet Rick in line at the country club, like going to buy a religion show. And he's like, oh, I'm from Moore Park. And he was already in a band. Rick was in a band, Monster Club, which became Still Life. He's like, oh, I'm in a band. But Rick was getting into like straight edge hardcore. And Still Life, you know, Monster Club turned into Still Life. They were like on Ebullition, more like an emo. Yeah, definitely emo. Like a 90s emo band. And so we all started hanging out. And then like, me and my friend Jeff, we would like go and we'd go to like Music Plus or Warehouse, and we'd be like, oh, get whatever you could get that was like close to punk or hardcore. So like you could get like Suicidal, you could get Circle Jerks, Adolescence, like, you know, Minor Threat, Black Flag, like all of those bigger names. You know, I remember famously one of my worst purchases of all time was Social Distortion had a record called Prison Bound. And I was like, oh, Social Distortion's a punk band, right? I'm fucking going to buy this for whatever, $8 or whatever. So I buy it, and it, you know, sounded like a country record. And I was like so mad.
I have to ask, how did you pick, because maybe it's the same way when I first started into music, I would purchase records and CDs based on like the Thank You catalog, or like just the catalog with the label, without even getting a chance to listen to it a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to see the band. It kind of sounds
so
like
a lot of it was like the covers. It was like the record covers is what you could find. Like, you know, right then we were going to Music Plus and Warehouse, right? So like they didn't have too many options. Like you would get like, you know, Discord stuff, SST, and then like some of the bigger stuff, because that was on Frontier, DRI. You could even rent like the DRI crossover VHS. You could rent that from Music Plus. So there was some stuff you can get. So it was like stuff you'd see in Thrasher magazine. Like we got into Excel because they were in Thrasher, right? Yeah. And then we figured out there's a record store called Record Outlet, and we figured out that the guy could special order stuff from us. Yeah. So that was like the game changer when they could special order CDs for us. So we would like go in with a list, and we were like, oh, can you special order Judge and Bold and Youth of Today and Gorilla Biscuits and Verbal Assault and this and that, right? So we would just be ordering.
How long did it take to get these records?
Dude, it would take a long ass time. But then like, that was the only way you could get it. Like before you could drive, that was the only way you can get it. Now my friend Jeff, he had an older sister that we would convince her to drive to Long Beach to Zed Records. So like maybe once a month we'd go to Long Beach with fucking $20 and be like, okay, we're buying demos and 7 inches and picking up flyers for shows. That's kind of like what we did. But yeah, so early on, I think
like what was it that you were? Because from my understanding, you've always kind of been one of the main writers for Strife. Mm-hmm. So what the hell were you listening to during In This Defiance and One Truth? Like what were you listening to that made you write those records?
Okay, so like early on, I think we didn't know what we wanted to sound like. Right on our first 2 7-inches, we're like trying to figure out our sound. And I think our main thing was like, we are really into New York hardcore. So we loved Sick of It All. We loved Judge, Youth of Today, Bold. We were into all that. But then we also loved like Uniform Choice and Instead. But we were like really into like AF, like New York hardcore, straight edge hardcore. But we also would like love circles, right? So like our drummer was punk. And so he could play fast. And like in the 90s, a lot of drummers couldn't play fast. Yeah. So like he was just a fast drummer. He, I think took a lot of cues from like Discharge and stuff in his drumming. And so we wanted to be fast, but also we wanted to be like, all of those bands from the 80s were breaking up. So we wanted to be something like, whether it was Chain of Strength or Youth of Today, and be a band that, jumped around and went crazy. So I think early on, we were kind of trying to play that style without knowing how to do it. And then kind of, I think with One Truth, like kind of just refining our style, like whether it was like, obviously there's a heavy Judge influence, but also influenced by bands that were current. So it was like we loved Outspoken, we loved Undertow, we loved Integrity. Yeah. So like kind of blending those sounds, and then in the same way, like maybe especially on One Truth, kind of injecting like a little more. We also love like emotional bands, right? So you kind of hear that a little bit in some of the music where it's not just, oh, we're straight up this pissed off hardcore band, right? Yeah. And then I think just from touring a lot, you start getting into other things. I think by the time we started writing In This Defiance,
In This Defiance had a lot of like a little bit more of a metal.
For sure, but we had just came off tour with Sepultura, right? So we just did the Roots tour, and that we were like, oh shit, like this is what we want to be, right? Yeah. Like, so like how could we bridge the gap between a hardcore band and a metal band without taking it to an extreme? So like we love Sepultura, we love Deftones, we were obviously listening to more music outside of hardcore, and kind of injecting that into our sound and making it ours without, without trying to be very blatant.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we've always tried to do as a band. Like whether, if we are influenced by the Cro-Mags, we're not trying to steal riffs, but like, we all love the Cro-Mags. We all love Judge. It's
cool to see that transition, and but it's also like, when you listen to it, it's like, it's a very like, that's Strife. There's not other bands up until recent years where there's been younger bands that like have very obviously tried to sound like Strife, and like I'm trying to think, what's the band from Florida? Eco Strike,
Magnitude.
And I was like, yo, this is straight up. This is Strife.
Yeah, that's Eco Strike for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I like it. Kids like, it's a ripoff. I was like, well, what is not a ripoff?
Yeah, I mean, for me, but
to me, it's a very like they're obviously paid. If they will admit it or not, I don't know.
Oh, they 100%.
But like, if you don't admit to that, like this is homage to like Strife, and it's like, even to this day, I think Strife has its own sound.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with our drummer Sid.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he had a lot of really cool ideas, and whether or not it was just like humming riffs, but like his drumming, it was so unique.
Yeah.
And he was a really good drummer, and in the 90s, like I said, like a lot of drummers weren't playing fast.
Well, okay, so in the band currently, it's you, Todd, Rick. Who else is
Chad?
Chad.
And then right now we have our friend Pepe playing drums.
Okay, so it's
so basically everyone but the drummer played on.
That's from what I remember.
Yeah.
So I mean, like going from like those first early on records to like let's say Anger Beans, which Anger Beans was like, I think at that point I was like, Strife was like massive. I feel like at that point in my eyes,
yeah,
was like, well, like was almost like kind of picking at like going on to like, I guess mainstream tours at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, like I think the most mainstream tour we did, like I said, we toured with like Incubus and we would play with bands like Far, who play with hardcore bands, like they weren't like a mainstream band by any stretch, but like I definitely think
the reach got to another level.
Yeah, and that was like in this Defiance. I think obviously touring with Sepultura was like a game changer for us. I think being on Victory at that time, like that was the biggest hardcore record label.
Late 90s, early 2000s, Victory was massive.
Yeah, I've heard stories of like Slayer requesting our record from Victory as like to inspiration when they were writing like God Hates Us All or something. You know what I mean? Like weird things like that. So I think there was a lot of crossover between scenes and whether it was like like Sick of It All touring with Slayer or us touring with Sepultura or whatever, like you're starting to see more crossover between scenes, and I love that. Like in my opinion, that's the only way hardcore is gonna grow and kind of keep getting bigger and live. Like you can't have these super small kind of elitist type scenes. Like you gotta be open-minded and embrace other people, embrace people that don't look like you, that don't listen to the same music as you. You know what I mean? Like and be inviting.
Yeah, and I think that's we both live here in LA and go to shows here. And I think that's the thing that I do love, that there's such a huge variety of like shows and music, booking shows. Yeah. Sometimes
especially right now. Like right now, I feel like hardcore, and it's weird because it's kind of like the 90s are popular in like fashion and music.
Yeah, what's your take on music and hardcore now? Because you've seen the last 30 years of it.
I think it's cool, man. I think now kids are really like not scared to step out of the box, right? Like I feel like in the 90s, like if you try to like step out of a box, people are like, oh, you're a sellout, you're doing this, you're trying to get on a major label. Like we had kids mad at us because we had $1,000 guarantee on a full US tour, right? Yeah. And people made anti-Strife shirts with dollar signs on it. It's like, really, $1,000 guarantee?
Yeah, if only people knew some of these bands are getting.
Yeah, and I just like to see like, if you want to be a musician, go for it. Like, and don't be scared to step out of the box. But I also see kids being really open-minded and kind of embracing these bands that are making these left turns, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Cool.
I think that's...
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it nowadays, like, you know, bands are just getting stranger and stranger, but it's also like, for me, it's like refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like all of it. Trust me. Like, I don't like all of it, but I appreciate...
I find some of it being refreshing, but then I also like the eco Strife that's trying to sound like Strife.
Yeah.
I love Strife.
Yeah,
so
they do it. And here's the thing, they do it well.
Yeah.
And like for me, like everyone in that band is super cool, but also having young bands like that, you know, use your band as a point of reference. It exposes your band. Like there might not be 16-year-old kids that listen to Strife. You know what I mean? So so for a band like Eco Strike to come out, like, oh yeah, we love Strife and this is what we sound like, and 16-year-old kids probably like, oh, I want to check out this Strife band. Like, I miss them, you know?
And dude, that's so fucking true, because, like, there's a lot of young people, like, you know, like, oh, like, I like this band. I was like, oh, yeah, like, Strife. Yeah. And some people are like, huh? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, listen to this.
Yeah, give us a listen. And I think that's what, you know, that's why I appreciate bands like that. But I also think, like, a band like Terror, who's been around, you know, 16 years, right? Yeah. Like, them being on the road all the time, playing the style that they do, it keeps the style that we play current. Yeah. You know, like
bands like, but like bands like them, like Madball, bands that are like literally have been at the forefront of this for so long, but also consistently there. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, put it in perspective. Like, Strife's been a band for what, almost 30 years now. Mm-hmm. So longer than what Terry's been, but Terry has been constantly.
Yeah, like, I mean they out-toured us for sure. I mean,
like, how the fuck do you do that?
I don't know.
Did you at some? I guess that was one of my questions. Like, you know, Strife's been a band for so long. You know, there was a period of time where you guys were touring, but what made you guys not pull out and just say fuck it, we're done as a band? But also, what makes you keep going as a band? Yeah, because you guys aren't a full-time band. You guys aren't touring. And that's
I think that's what that's what makes us keep going. Like when we like in the 90s, like we toured. Oh, I thought you were signaling you're gonna do something. In the 90s, we toured probably harder than any band, at least from the West Coast. You know, like we were consistently. You know,
I would see Strife on every flight.
Yeah, and you know, three U.S. tours a year. Like we hit the road hard when a lot of bands weren't. And it definitely got to the point where we would push each other's buttons and we would know exactly how to piss somebody off, and we would do it. You know, like you're a little kid and you're bored and you're like, oh, I want to make Sid laugh. I'm gonna pick on Chad, right? Yeah. Like, and it's terrible. Like, you know, and it's a terrible way to live, and I don't recommend it to kids that want to be in a touring band. Okay, like the best thing you do is stay friends with your bandmates.
Yeah, I mean, dude, my band is my best friends. But also, like, trying to understand the perspective of touring in the 90s compared to now. At least when Sabal first started touring, I at least had an app list.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had a cell phone to keep you entertained or music. Like, we literally had nothing.
So in the 90s, first of all, how did you book a tour? And how the fuck, like, how did you get to the next city? Like,
okay, so...
I understand how it is, but
we would have... I don't think we actually booked a tour by ourselves. We would have, like, I think at the time Victory Records had a booking agent in-house. We had, early on, I think we had Tim Bohr book a tour for us in Earth Crisis. Yeah. That was like a nightmare. He's an amazing book agent now, but I think it's probably his first tour. We had a few other booking agents. But, so you would get a little booklet with the addresses. We would have a map of the country, and we would drive to the city, and then we'd get to a gas station and we'd buy a local map, and then we would Rick was really good at that, because I think Rick worked for his dad as an electrician. They would drive all over Southern California, so he was really good with these maps. We'd pull out the map and he would find the street on there, and You just like map it out yourself.
Which I think nowadays it
was insane. It was insane.
I think nowadays I don't think your average person would be able to do that. It's impossible.
No. And so we drove. we had this show. I've told this before. We had the show in Syracuse in the middle of winter. There was we were on the East Coast in one of the worst snowstorms of all time. I think we were driving from Jersey to Syracuse. We drove up to Syracuse in the middle of this snowstorm. We were playing a crazy show at the Lost Horizon. And we're late and we can't find the club. Everything's closed. So I remember we pulled over at this gas station and there's 6 feet of snow piled up. And I could see the top of a phone booth just peeking out of snow. Take all the snow off, find the number for the Lost Horizon somehow, call the dude, hey, we're on this street, we're coming, right? And he's like, okay, make a left, make 2 rights. We were right around, somehow around the corner, but so crazy.
So you guys toured at a time that was it was fairly difficult to tour.
Yeah.
Logistically, it was not easy.
No, no cell phones, no MapQuest, and like I said, nothing to keep you entertained from getting on each other's nerves, right? So it's either you sleep
or you just do bad shit. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and that was it. It wasn't I'm gonna watch a movie on my phone on this 9-hour drive.
Yeah,
there was a tour we did, and it was we didn't have a van, so we borrowed Undertow's van.
Yeah.
So we had every member of Undertow on the tour except for John, and so there was 12 people in this 10-passenger van or something, just packed. We had a loft, and under the loft was a place we called the Cave, and it was just pitch black and just whatever. So I would go into the cave and sleep, and people wouldn't see me for 18 hours. I could just sleep anywhere. So I just go I'm going to sleep. They would stop. They'd go eat. I wouldn't even get up. They'd drive, go stop, eat somewhere else. I wouldn't get up, and finally I pop up. They're like, dude, you've been sleeping the whole time. Yeah. What else am I gonna do? I'd either sit and read a whole book, or sleep, or. So
what was the deciding factor? Fuck, we're not gonna tour, we're not gonna be a touring band.
So what
I understand it from being in a band, but from your guys' time period, what was the point that we can't tour full time?
We got to a point where we were getting on each other's nerves for sure, and then we had a crazy summer booked. So we had a full Warped Tour booked, which was, I don't know, 2 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then right after that, we had a full U.S. tour that was going to be with I think it was Hatebreed, Earth Crisis, Scarhead, something like that.
Dude, what a lineup.
Yeah, a crazy, and they did the tour without us, but we had 3 months solid booked of touring.
Yeah.
And Sid, our drummer, hated touring. And I don't know, probably people's girlfriends didn't want to be on tour. You know what I mean? I think it was a combination of things.
Just a combination of getting tired and life just kind of getting in the way, right?
Life getting in the way, but I think people were really scared, shit, I don't want to be on tour my whole life. I think that's what it was, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think people understand how to be in a tour band, in a full-time tour band, and when you mention when someone's oh, these dudes are getting paid $1,000 fucking sellouts.
Yeah.
Yo, $1,000 divided by 5 people, gas, hotel.
Oh, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
So we got So I remember. I remember we played the show in Atlanta, and we had a debate with this guy Mike Fight. I don't know if Mike Mowry. I don't know if you know him. He manages bands like Refuse and Darkest Hours and big bands now.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was kind of this PC punk kid, and he came to the show and he's like, "Why are you asking for this amount of money?" And they're like, "Well, we rented this. I don't think it was we van, right? So we got to pay for gas. We rented this U-Haul. We got to put our equipment in the U-Haul. We're gonna get a hotel. There's probably 10 of us. We'd always roll. We'd bring all our friends. So it wasn't just the band. We'd bring 3, 5 people, whatever. Just because, what else are you gonna do? Bring your friends with you. And he's like, yeah, but you you don't need that U-Haul chokehold. You know, they have practice amps, right? And they sleep on top of their amps in the back of the. I was like, first of all,
hey, chokehold, bitch.
Exactly. First of all, chokehold sound like shit. Second of all, we like to sound good. We want our gear. We don't want to crash and be killed by a practice amp. And he just couldn't understand the mathematics of asking for $1,000, right? Like, at that time, our worst show would be 100 people, but up to 800 people.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're charging $10, like, you just do the math. Like, who should the money go to? The band or the promoter? Like, that's it. Like, exactly. And it was just a very 90s thing to worry about.
I mean, I get it as a kid when, for some reason, I started booking shows when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
And why people trust me, I don't know. But I would book shows and bands would be like, I need $400. Like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Until you understand, logistically what it takes to tour and, to even put fucking.
But here's the thing: if you can't pay a band, there's two ways to look at it. If you can't pay a band $400, either you shouldn't be booking that band, or that band shouldn't be on tour. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that. That's it.
And I agree. There's definitely there's that perspective. Okay, either this band has to be able to tour and pull the numbers.
Yeah.
Or don't fucking tour and put these people like, because I've had bands like, we need X amount of money, and like, dude, no, you've never played LA, no one knows who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
So there's both sides of the coin,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, if you're a full-time band, like, you rely on that. Like, you're not at home, but you're still paying rent. Yeah, you still got bills. Like,
you gotta understand the value of what it is. And dude, I mean, that's the same reason why I stopped touring too, because I was just like, I think for you guys are, for the most part, we were all straight edge.
Yeah.
During this time, for me, I was like, I mean, not only like are we not making enough money to sustain at home, because there was a period of time where like all of us were kind of homeless for a second.
Yeah.
And on tour, like, dude, we fucking robbed every grocery store in this fucking country, and I was just like, people were like, oh, that's horrible. Like, I don't give a fuck. I was hungry,
Yeah.
But it wasn't because it was malicious, because I was fucking hungry. And then I'm realizing, like, I'm not a teen anymore. I'm, getting 26, 27. I'm like, I can't do this forever, So
and you don't want to be, caught in Tennessee or something, right? And then they search your van and they find somebody's weed or whatever it is. And like,
we got to a point where I was just like, if we keep touring, someone's gonna end up in jail or dead. I can't do that. So for bands that do tour full time, like this, I give it up to them. But it's also, I hope kids understand that, like, when these bands do tour, go buy a fucking T-shirt, go buy a record, like.
Exactly.
I don't think people understand how far that money goes for a band,
Yeah.
So I have to ask, for the most part, when Strife started as a band, Strife was a straight edge band, correct?
Yeah.
Is Strife a straight edge band anymore?
No.
So no.
I mean, we haven't.
I know that.
I mean, we haven't been a straight edge band since.
I know that.
Since we came, since we came back in 2002. And we made it, and we made it clear. I mean, I think that's the.
But some people do wonder, and that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's fine. It's cool.
So like, for you, who you are straight edge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like, for you, was that weird to like continue to be a band and not being, because you guys still play these songs. Well, has that ever been weird for you, or is it just one of those things?
Is it weird? I mean, here's the thing.
You just let it go.
When we first came back, we made it clear we weren't a straight edge band. We didn't sell shirts that said straight edge. We still don't. Or sell a shirt with an X on it, right? We didn't try to capitalize on it. And early on, we'd be like, if you look at the Strife catalog, there's not a lot of straight edge songs. There's probably maybe 5.
But those straight edge songs are the hardest straight edge
songs. They
are.
Ever. And so
I would still say Strife is my favorite straight edge band.
Yeah. But so when we first came back, we're like, okay, we're not gonna play Force of Change. We're not gonna play 2 and N. Those are our 2 main straight edge songs. We had Arms of the Few. Might be one or 2 more, but it's not a big percentage of our catalog. Hey, we'll play. We could play we have other songs that people like that aren't straight edge. But it came a time where people want to hear those songs.
Fuck yeah.
You're paying to see my band. I'll play the fucking song. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and was there ever any, like, for you personally, was that ever kind of weird? Like, you just, one of those things like, fuck it, let it go, who gives a fuck?
I mean,
Because I'm assuming there had to have been some kind of, like, weird backlash from random people. But is that something you kind of just ignored it?
Yeah. I mean, when we first came back, it was crazy because there was a huge backlash. And it's funny because you see a ton of bands now from the 80s and 90s that were straight edge bands, you know, selling shirts with straight edge logos on them, and nobody gives a shit that they're not straight edge. So it was weird that we got a little bit more shit for it, I think, than other bands. When we weren't trying to hide it, you know, we were like, no, we're not straight edge anymore.
Yeah.
And
I mean, personally, I don't care.
We definitely had a backlash, but we also had you'd have a backlash if your t-shirt was $10. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people will always find something to complain about. And unless they're in your shoes, they don't understand your process. I mean,
I never cared because, the first time I saw Strife, I was fucking drunk.
Yeah. But, you know, I like to think that our lyrics were not just about being straight edge, right? And we always had a positive message about inclusion, and I think we have lyrics that still speak to kids. And if every song was just about straight edge, then maybe it wouldn't make sense to play, you know, No Longer Being Straight.
But I notice every once in a while when you guys do play Forces Change, you know, it's usually someone else jumping on the mic, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we would do that. And
does Rick feel weird about it or not?
What's weird, like, Rick's actually like straight edge right now. Like, he doesn't X up, but he doesn't do drugs or drink or smoke or whatever. So I think he's like kind of like into it, you know. See, I've actually been that way for a couple of years now. You know, and it's funny because we would, for a number of years, we would have other people sing, and from younger, you know, straight edge bands or whatever, and a few of those kids now are no longer straight edge. So it's interesting to kind of see the.
I've never really dug in too deep into like caring of like, because at the end of the day, exactly, you see all these reunion bands of like old straight edge bands, like these motherfuckers are not straight edge.
But here's the thing: do you like the songs?
Yeah,
or do you like what the guys in the band like? You know,
at the end of the day, I'd rather see Rick drunk sing Force of Change than see some random dude sing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth.
But I think.
But also, I don't give a shit because I think I've grown. Just as you guys have grown as a band, I've grown with the band in the sense that I love this band. People change and people whatever.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like for us, like people are going to change. People are not the same as they were 20 years ago. Some people aren't the same as they were 2 years ago, right? Like you, as a person, you should always be evolving. Hopefully, to the positive, right?
Is there a band that you would say is like the one still true straight edge band?
No, I don't know. Like
is it Earth Crisis? Isn't everybody Earth
Crisis? Okay, people will say Earth Crisis, but to me, Earth Crisis is Ben Reed, right? Ben Reed is the original guitar player, and he's as important to my memory of Earth Crisis as Carl. Like when I first started seeing Earth Crisis, like people were like, oh, Carl's vocal sick. Fuck, Ben Reed is the shit. His stage and Ben Reed was by far my best friend. Like, and I'm friends with everybody in Earth Crisis, but I love Ben.
Yeah.
Ben hasn't been straight edge since fucking 95 or something. Like you know, like we would tour with Earth Crisis and Ben would come and ride with us, and he was crazy. The dude took a bus from Syracuse to Thousand Oaks and lived in my house for like 6 months.
Yeah.
He's come in and out of my life so many times. He would disappear, and then he'd be like, oh, I'm traveling door to door selling an encyclopedia. He would show up at my house, right? And he's just an awesome, hilarious character. And then he became a nutritionist. Actually, I had a band with him in the 2000s.
Not bad.
We never released anything, but it was me, Ben Reed, and then we had 2 different drummers. Franklin from Shelter was playing bass for most of the time. Pepe, who's in Strife now, played drums on one of the recordings, and then my friend Dustin played on another recording. And then we tried out every singer like you could think of. Like we had the singer for Cast Aside audition, Jorge for Marauder auditioned. Kept trying out singers, and then we had Carl from First Blood ended up singing on the recordings. And then at that time, like one of the guys.
So there's recordings, but
yeah, I'll play it for you. It's cool. It sounds like it's somewhere.
It sounds sick. It's
somewhere between Earth Crisis and Lamb of God. It's like more metal than Earth Crisis, and like it's really sick. It's my favorite that Carl from First Blood sounded. Like his voice sounded awesome on that, and it's funny. I still have the recordings, and I just hit up Carl like, yo, we should maybe like get this mastered and put it out. And he was like, oh, I don't like my vocals. I want to re-sing it. And I'm like, he'll never get it done. So I don't know. I wanted to just put it out. It's like a little.
Dude, when you look at like First Blood, early First Blood, it's like, dude, his voice is so raw. But
his voice was rad. And so at that time, Carl, I think he like moved to Mexico. It's like, so he was still here at the time. Then he disappeared to Mexico. Then one of the dudes in the band got locked up. And then, I don't know, Ben's disappeared. I haven't heard or seen from Ben in maybe like 10 years. Like he became a nutritionist and moved to Irvine. I still have a number for him. I'll try to text him randomly or call him. Like, is he going to answer the phone? But anyway, so when I think of Earth Crisis, and I think a lot of people from the 90s.
You refer to Ben.
I think of Ben. I think of Carl, and I love Bulldog and Dennis and.
But the current lineup of
is all straight edge. But you can have any current line, and I get it. Like,
so there's still
Bulldog's brothers played on a lot of records. But does that make them the truest band? I don't know.
Yeah,
to me,
they're the only true straight edge band in my opinion.
I mean, I can name 100 bands that are straight edge that has every single member is still straight edge from their first record. I don't know. From the 90s, I don't know. Like
not many.
No, but from the 90s, not many. But there was 2 guitar players before the guitar player they have now.
Yeah,
Ian's brother. They had 2 guitar. They had
but at
Chris.
least like, hey.
Okay, so they had Ben. Ben quit on his own. They had Chris, who's definitely not straight edge.
That's hard though. The criteria to be an Earth Crisis, you have to be straight edge.
But he was in, I think, God Below. You know that band, God
Below?
I think Chris was in that. And it's funny, like the whole time Chris was in Earth Crisis, like he was a total dick to us. Like I don't know if he had a chip on us. I don't know what his deal was. I have no idea. But like we were friends with everyone, and he would always be a total dick. And then no, so then we played this show. We had this show. It was so crazy. We had this show at CBGB's, and it was Strife. It was E-Town Concrete, and it was, I can't remember. I just think of the band's name. I can't think of it right now. Strife, E-Town Concrete, and a few other bands. But anyway, so we were in New York the day before, and we go to CB's, and we see Chris, and he's sitting there. He's got long hair. He's wearing like a biker jacket. Like almost wouldn't recognize him. I think somebody like he was sitting in the bar, and he was drinking beers or something or I don't know. He's drinking something, and like was the coolest dude. Like he's like, you guys are the best. Like he was like our best bro. And I'm like, man, this is like somebody who's like such a better person for not being straight edge. And I totally backed that. Like I totally backed that change. Like he was so cool and happy and friendly. Every other time you'd see him, he'd be like clenched fist, like, you know, what are those fucking hand things? Like, you know, squeezing those fucking hand things.
It's so funny you say that because I was just like, yo, there's some people that just got, please just fucking drink a beer.
Yes. And so, you know what? Like, I don't care what anybody wants to do. But he's so cool last time we saw him and, like, totally changed my whole perspective on him as a person. Like, so, obviously, he had some shit, like, you know, he wasn't being himself, right? And he probably hated himself for, you know, not being himself.
I had a friend growing up, you know, we used to play in hardcore bands when I was a kid. And he was straight edge. I'm like, dude, you're such a little dickhead, dude. Hate you. Fucking hate you. And then he moved to Europe, and then, like, you know, I saw him, and he's like, obviously he's not straight edge anymore, and I'm like, hey, you're a lot like more pleasant now. Like,
yeah. I mean, the thing you see with these straight edge kids who stop being straight edge is they go off the deep end. Like they try to go too hard, I think.
Oh, that was Sababa, dude.
So
when Sababa started, we were all straight edge except me.
Oh wow.
So I remember we used to go to band practice and I would fuck it, like I was underage and Brian wasn't, so he used to buy me my beer. So I'd be like, give me a 40, and then I'll come to practice.
But yeah, so that being said, I do love Earth Crisis, and I'll give it to him. I don't know who else I may give it to, but you got to take into account.
I think when you think of when you think of the timeline of them being a band compared to bands from that era or earlier.
Well, here's something weird.
They're the only band that's still straight edge.
Maybe.
Even if it's not the same.
Okay, here's a question, and I don't know the answer to this. Okay, take Snapcase. Snapcase, although they weren't a straight edge band, they were a straight edge band. They didn't advertise it like Strife or Earth Crisis. There's a very good chance, and I could be wrong, because I don't keep tabs, I don't care. What if every single one of them straight edge, and you just don't know?
Nah,
they could be. They could be.
Could be.
I don't know.
But I don't know that.
I don't either.
I know Earth Crisis is.
Yeah. But not my boy Ben. Not my boy Ben.
Dude. Man, he's sold out.
He's the best. Out. Ben's the best. But that's the thing. So, like, any band, right, you could replace every member. Like, oh, they're straight.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, I love it. Because it's probably just called, like, if you're not straight, you're out of the band.
Yeah. So, I play in a straight edge band currently called Berthold City. And we have dudes, like, playing instruments they don't even play. Because we need a straight edge band. So,
Berthold City is compiled of some of my favorite people and favorite bands growing up that got me into hardcore. So one of them being Dennis.
Yeah.
One of them was of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Who else is in the band?
So we got Dennis from Internal Affairs. We have John. John was the singer of Allegiance. Yeah. He plays bass.
Yeah.
So, and then we have Dave Ito, who's actually a bass player. He was in Amendment 18 and The Mistake. Mm-hmm. He plays guitar. Mm-hmm. And then Adam, he's in One Choice and Abrasion, a new band called Abrasion. Yeah. He plays drums. So Adam rips. Adam holds it together. Everyone else is on the verge of like just falling apart at any moment. But it's awesome. It's like great friends, and we all have a blast. But it was like, I started the band. It was just me and Adam, and really it could have been like, oh, we're gonna be a hardcore band.
Didn't Adam play a couple Strife sets?
Oh yeah, he was in Strife for a couple years. Like he toured Europe with us a few times, went to Japan with us. Yeah, he was with us for a long time.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, we could have very easily just like, oh, we're a hardcore band, but I thought it was kind of cool to be like, hey, we're a straight edge hardcore band, and we're some older dudes that are still straight edge. So it's very hard to find band members the older you get, but straight edge band members, forget it. It's like impossible.
Yeah.
So we had this kid named Devin on guitar that was in Final Fight. You know Final Fight?
Devin, yeah.
Little dude.
Yeah.
And he was one of our original members, but he moved to Kansas City or something.
That's nice.
Yeah. So Devin, at the time, our secret weapon was Adam. Adam's still the secret weapon, and then Devin.
Oh yeah. And then Adam's an amazing drummer.
Adam's a beast, and then John was like. Had like some sick stage presence, and he's goofy, and it like he kills it. And then Dennis, for playing guitar as long as he has, is just like, it's unbelievable. Like it's like I show him these basic songs, like what are you doing right there? I'm like, really? It's like,
well, because again, all I remember Dennis and him playing with Internal Affairs, he's off the stage more than he is on the stage. Like he's just throwing his guitar. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So I mean, at least he's got that going for him. But no, we have a blast, and like I said, like I could have very easily be like, oh, I'm starting this hardcore band and just got like any dudes to play in it, but I was like, I wanted to be straight edge band, and we don't even really have any straight edge songs. Yeah. But it's cool.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Well, going back to Strive, what's this year fucking sucked, but it's like, is there anything going on in the Strife world? Are you guys working on anything?
Well, so one of the last shows for many people was we got to do the California Takeover.
I was so bummed I missed that shit.
It was sick. So we did San Francisco and LA, I want to say it's like February 21st and 22nd. And for a lot of people, that was their last show. And what a way to go out with a fucking bang. Strife, Earth Crisis, Snapcase. We had Magnitude as well. And then Hesitation Moves up in the LA show, Brooklyn City up in the San Francisco show. So that was like definitely, that was the last Strife show of the year and definitely a highlight for all of us. We did start working on a new record. We had like, I don't know, 12 or 14 songs recorded that we're just waiting on Rick to come in and do some vocals that hopefully next year.
So you guys already recorded it.
It's done. Yeah,
So
everything's done. But with the music, Nick Jett produced it. We worked on it probably like over 2 years. I demoed a bunch of songs, and then everything's tracked and just basically waiting on Rick. And
yo, Rick, hurry up.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like coronavirus hit, and he didn't feel that comfortable.
No, I'm just saying.
Getting in the studio, and then
he just had a kid too, right?
Well, he has a kid and his wife's pregnant.
Yeah.
So now they've had a few like close calls with people around him and coronavirus, and he's like, no, we're not going in. So I think his baby's due in April. So
at some point we're gonna get a new Strife record.
I hope so. That's the plan. He's actually sang on a few songs already. But yeah, he's got to finish.
Your guys' catalog spreads now. With that record's gonna be 30 years.
Yeah.
Does your writing style, has it changed in 30 years, or is it just kind of?
Well, I think the thing,
because I listen to every Strife record, and there's always that very like staple.
Yeah.
Strife.
Here's the thing. We're Strife. It's got to sound like Strife. So if let's say Witness of Rebirth was our first record, this record's like the perfect follow up to that. It's like in the same way, like you see kind of a change between One Truth and This Defiance, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the same way. Like it's heavier, it's more aggressive, a little more metal influence. You definitely hear a little more Cro-Mags, Leeway, but it's definitely Strife. Awesome. And I think if you're a fan of the band, you're absolutely gonna love it. Like this,
who's gonna put it out?
Probably me. Yeah.
More records.
Yeah, that's the plan. Unless somebody steps up with more money than me, but yeah, right now that's the plan. Is I'm gonna put that out.
That'd be appropriate now, I would say.
Yeah.
For me, like it's pretty cool to see. I've been a fan of everything you've done for so long. It's like watching you do a label. I'm like, this is fucking cool. Like it's cool to see people not only like partake in playing a band, but also partake in like putting music out. Yeah. Because it's
a labor of love.
It's a labor of love.
It's a labor of love, and I think for me, like it's my way of kind of giving back, right? Like I have a lot of a big network and resources, and there's a band that I find that I like and that's cool. It's like, fuck it, I'm gonna put my energy behind this and see if I could help them get to the next level, right? Yeah. Or like I just put out Terror 7. It's like I'm not gonna help them get to a next level, but to me, like that really puts like a real stamp on the label, like working with a band like Terror, who's been on huge labels and such an established band that they're gonna trust me to put out a record. So that was like definitely a high point of this year, and that's like awesome. 25th or 26th release. Yeah. So like it's been going good, and at this time it's like I know how to put out a record and work a release, and it's like I don't know why I didn't start doing that sooner. Yeah. It's something I always wanted to do and talked about.
Is there any like you're still actively going to shows. We see each other all the time.
Yeah.
We're friends. But it's like, is there any current bands that you are listening to that still keeps you excited on music?
Yeah. There's so much.
What's some bands that you like recently listened to? You're like, oh, this is sick.
Well, I just put out a band called Reserving Dirt Naps from Memphis.
Yeah.
And they're fucking sick. Like I love it, and it's like a band that was recommended to me by another band on the label, and they're super heavy, and music is really well thought out. The lyrics are great, and just a sick band, you know. And so I never met these guys before, and they call me up like, "Hey, we want to be on your label." I'm like, "Cool, send me some stuff." And really, really cool guys, and I can't wait for them to be able to tour. It's they're like a band that I think they're one of the few bands in Memphis. So if any band goes on tour, you're gonna play with them because they book the shows, and they're the local band there. So like a lot of bands know them and love them. Yeah. So it's just a matter of them, I think, really just getting out and going on tour and doing it. I mean, like, I'm always looking for new music, like whether it's like going on Bandcamp or checking out new releases. There's like so many good.
No, yeah, it's noticeable. It's cool. It's cool. You know, sometimes I'm like, fuck. Like, I think nowadays that music's so accessible. I'm just like, fuck, dude. Like there's so much music.
There's so much. There's so much that comes out. Sometimes. It's so easy for a band to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, it's easy to oversee a band and like not even get a chance to listen to it.
Like I know, like for instance, like just think of one, like Pillars of Ivory, right?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that yet. I've seen it. I've seen the sweatshirts. You know what I mean? Like I know what it is, but I haven't heard it.
Yeah, but for me now,
only because there's so much, I gotta like think about it. I gotta like go to my computer and like, okay, I'm type this in or Spotify or whatever.
Like nowadays, like a friend's got to be like, yo, check this out. Like, because just like
there's so much.
There's so much coming at you.
So much music.
You know, but
and that's I think that's the hardest challenge, like being in a band or as a label. It's like, how do you cut through all the noise, because there's 100 other bands, right? With new releases.
Man. Okay, do you ever good? Yeah, that, but it's also like, you know, you watch bands like you guys and bands like, you know, Shababa, who's been touring for well over a decade.
Yeah.
15, 20 years, whatever. And you see how long it takes to grow a fan base. Where now you could grow that shit overnight.
You can grow it overnight, but you can also lose it overnight. Right? Like hype will get you so far unless you deliver as a band.
I mean, like, to me that shit's whack. Like I see bands playing these festivals that like they've never toured, never understood what it is to feel. And to me, that's the only reason why I love playing a hardcore band, because I want to tour, you know, be in a band and experience that. Where like I think there's this, you know, playing a festival was the high point.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't seem like that now. You know, to me, that road you get to that point was a big important part and just as fun. Yeah. You know, to me that was cool.
Well, playing the festival, it's kind of like, it's kind of fake, because you have the crowd there, but they're not necessarily there because of you, right?
Yeah.
So like, sure, it looks good in a photo, right? But like, they would be there if it was a different band. Yeah. So like, getting the hype and this quick fan base, are they going to be there in a year, or are they the fans that are like, oh, I want the next cool thing? You know what I mean? Like, that's the hard thing. Is like how do you grab on and get like a fan who stays with you for your next album and your next album? Yeah. You gotta A, write great songs. Mm-hmm. B, you gotta kill it live, right? Yeah. Like, and that's why you see like a band like Turnstile, for instance. Like, love them or hate them, they're undeniable live show. You know what I mean? Like, like, and so it doesn't matter. You could go and not know one song, not even like hardcore, and you're going to have a good time at that show. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, it has to be more than just hype. Because you see hyped up bands all the time, and I'm like, really? This is what these kids are, everyone's saying is the greatest? Like, this isn't even good. They just have a lot of friends, right?
Yeah, and I got to that point where, like, nowadays, like, if a band doesn't tour,
nowadays, no band's touring.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Keep that in mind.
Nowadays, no one's a fucking. You're all starting from ground.
Yeah.
From ground one, you know. But for the most part, I was always attentive to the bands that were touring.
Yeah.
And I made it a point to be like, like that's cool that they're touring. Like, you like it, And when I see a band that doesn't tour and just plays every festival, man, it's kind of whack.
Yeah.
But whatever, But obviously, we're doing these live streams and band sets and trying to get creative simply because I think we're losing our minds slowly but surely.
Yeah.
But COVID-19 hit and fuck, a lot of this is very selfish in the sense that I'm just trying to stay busy because I work in the music industry and my whole.
Well, also you book shows for so long, so how can you still be booking a show? Like, okay, I'm gonna book this band to play this live stream, and it makes perfect sense why you're doing this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to a certain extent, but it's also I think the behind the scenes shit, it's a lot of work. Luckily, I have Kevin and Steven and Tom and people that are involved in this that
But here's the other thing.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, but here's the other thing. Steven would be at the show, filming the show.
Yeah.
And you would be booking the show. So you're doing the same thing, it's just the circumstances are different.
Yeah, the circumstances.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Everyone's Kevin would be here if it wasn't COVID-19, he would be here at the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Running the bar. And it's just everyone is making the best of the circumstances.
Yeah,
and you have to.
And honestly, it's been great because, dude, I've learned so much. I've learned to be creative in other ways, and it's been cool because it's honestly kept me sane. But for you personally, obviously your bands can't play.
Yeah.
You're able to put out records, but that's about it. But how's COVID? How's this pandemic in this year affected your world? Your life.
It's interesting. So, outside of music, I do real estate. I work in real estate. So, we're deemed essential. So I've been very busy. I think we had at the very beginning in March, we had a small shutdown before they figured out how they were going to do it. But this year in real estate's been insane.
I heard
yeah.
Has it been insane because prices have dropped?
No, prices gone up. Interest rates are so low. They're historically low that everyone wants to take advantage of this low interest rate. While at the same time, everyone's reevaluating their living situation. So there's people I live in an apartment with my family, and that was fine because we used to be able to go to the park and go to the beach. Oh, you can't do that anymore. Okay, well, I want to get a house with a pool and a backyard so we could just have our own compound and never have to go out to the outside world to get whatever it is, right? So people are kind of reevaluating, or they're oh, I had to live in downtown LA because of my work, but now I work remote. I'm going to go move deep in the valley, or I'm going to move to Colorado, or whatever. So people are kind of reevaluating their living situations. But also, what's driving the real estate boom is the interest rates, 100%.
Yeah.
Because for a normal 30-year mortgage, you're paying more in interest than you are in principal. Yeah. So it definitely makes sense. So I've been busy and thankfully had a job like that where I can stay busy and not go crazy. But at the same time, I've been working on music. So we just released, I play in a band called World Be Free with Scott from Terror and Sammy from Youth Today and Judge and Alex from Change Strength. We just released a record on Revelation that just came out last month. Mm-hmm. So that was recorded pre-pandemic, but all the kind of rollout, we figured out. So whether it was shooting a video for it or getting the artwork dialed in or the mixes dialed in or whatever. Yeah. So pressed for that. So I was busy with that. We started recording Berthold City LP. Nick Jett's producing that too. So we're just finishing the vocals and we'll be done. So I've been able to kind of be creative musically as well, which is also very fortunate. Me and Nick record, aside from having Adam track the drums, it's usually just me and Nick in the studio. So it's safe and very comfortable and
So it's cool. It sounds like you, at least you've been fortunate enough to stay busy.
Yeah, stay busy, stay creative. And then aside from that, I have my label. So it's like, okay, so whether I'm like releasing a new record with the band or getting the artwork together or shipping order, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I get kind of go crazy when I have nothing to do.
Yeah.
I'm bored. So like, I like to stay busy and focused and be like, early on in the pandemic, I was like, shit, this sucks. What can I do to help? Okay, I just started finding random bands and putting out their demos, releasing their demos.
Yeah.
Like okay, nobody's really going to be recording new music. Let me help these younger bands and see if if it helps. So I put out a demo by this band called Buggy from the East Coast. It's kind of like Oi influenced hardcore, really awesome. I put out a tape from this band called Band Blue from like San Diego and Orange County. It was more like Revolution Summer influenced hardcore. Really, really awesome. Both of those got great responses. Mm-hmm. Put out a tape from this band called Ironclad from Virginia, and a band called Last Gas from Cleveland. So like that was the thing. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put out these tapes just to stay busy. Then I had like the Reserving Dirt Naps come out, the Terror come out. I did a record with this band called Ways Away, which is Jesse from Stick to Your Guns and Sergi from Sam I Am. And then trying to just release like limited one-off kind of thing. So I did a series of like lathe cut 7 inches, which are like hand cut records. They're each cut by hand in real time on acrylic. So they're like a clear plastic, and it's different process than actually pressing a record. So I did like Berthold City did a Circle Jerks cover on one, and then we did a series of 4 for Terror, which led to the 7. So I've been so I've been very busy, just like
that's awesome,
putting out little projects and releases. And
I mean, I think we can both agree COVID-19 sucks for music in general. So hopefully
it does. My last show was here. I got to see the Terror live stream.
Oh yeah.
So I lucked out. That was November. So
yeah, man, I can't wait to like, as much as I like doing these live streams, it's one of those things that like, it's a labor of love, but also like, I just want to play a show.
Well, here's the thing. It's cool. It's not even a flicker of what going to a real hardcore show is. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. It's cool to watch it online.
Yeah.
But the whole thing that makes hardcore cool is the live experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't get that through a computer screen.
Exactly.
And the audience interaction, you can't.
No, of course. Like I think this is more of a selfish experience, and it's more literally just this like keep in touch with friends and talk.
Yeah, to people. I mean it's great. I mean there's many bands like your band who released a record in the middle of the pandemic that are like, oh, what can we do to promote our record that just came out? Like, and like a band like Code Orange, like right, like they literally dropped a record. I think on the day the lockdown started, right? Like that's got to be tough. Like they probably spent a lot of time making that record the best that they could, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, sorry, all your touring plans for the year are stopped. There's no shows. Like that's got to be like it's one thing for a band like Strife or whatever, Berthold City. Like we're not full-time bands. Like us not playing a show for a year, it's all good. It doesn't. It's not gonna affect us one way or another.
But I think even for you, you have to admit that like going to a show to become such a part of your life, that having that ripped away is kind of like like I think it's also just for like social and like also like my own well-being. It's like I enjoy watching music,
for sure. So and it's like that's where I see my friends. Like there's friends that I won't see anywhere else unless we go to a show, and then maybe we'll go eat after. Or
that's the only thing I've liked about doing these live streams. Like like if it wasn't for this, I've seen you twice in the past couple of months because of doing something. So to me, I was like, it's pretty cool to me. Yeah, and that's the thing. It was just like we could have done it over Zoom, but I'd rather get out my house. I'll see you. I'll see Kevin. We'll hang out a little bit, and safe environment. You know what I mean? Like everyone here, like
nobody's trying to act stupid. We were all wearing masks before we started the interview. We're socially distant. And,
I've been tested so much.
Yeah.
I'm just like, my nose hurts. We did some job last week and I literally got a test in and out. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking over it. All right, let's do a little quick lightning round that Kevin put together.
All right, let's go.
Kevin, where you at?
Yo.
All right, let's do this. Ozzy or Dio?
Is that a serious question? Ozzy. Come on.
I don't know.
Really?
My girlfriend says Dio. I'm definitely not Ozzy.
I mean, Dio invented the double horns, right? He gets a plus for that, I guess.
definitely prefer Ozzy. But I would admit that there's probably... Kevin, what's yours?
Ozzy.
Yeah.
All right, Angels or Dodgers?
Is that another question? Come on, Dodgers.
Not really.
That wasn't a...
Dodgers.
I was like, all right, Nike or Adidas?
Is that another serious question?
Yeah,
Nike,
actually,
come on. Nike.
You know what?
Not even close.
Dude, I'm going to say...
even close.
Dude, I'm going to start leaning towards Adidas.
Okay. We got Vans in here.
Dude, Nike's...
And Nikes.
Nike's quality has gone down the shitter. Like, every Nikes I bought, they last for like a couple months and they start ripping and bullshit.
I don't know. Adidas has President Kanye over there. I'll pass.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Slapshot or uniform choice?
Oh, uniform choice. Like, not even close. Not even close.
That's definitely probably a California thing, huh?
I would say most people,
Kevin's
Kevin's going to say Slapshot.
Slapshot,
Yeah. And I like Slapshot, but it's not even in the same league.
I would say uniform choice too, but I'm gonna. It's probably a California thing because, like, you know, growing up in California, I was like, oh, uniform choice. Yeah.
Well, no, Slapshot's a Boston thing.
Yeah.
Like, so Slapshot is more Boston than uniform choice is California.
So
if that makes any sense.
I think by default, just because Los Angeles is better, I think uniform choice.
Like, I think if you ask somebody from Seattle, they're gonna say uniform choice. You know what I mean? Like, with no bias.
Batman or Iron Man?
I don't care about comics. If I'm gonna go by movies, like the Batman Returns, that whole franchise will kill it. But Iron Man wasn't bad. What does suck? Wonder Woman. Terrible. Terrible. Everybody knows that by now.
I'm gonna say Batman.
Yeah.
All right. Northern California or Southern California? Southern California.
Okay. Here's one thing.
You better start moving out.
No. I love Southern California, but I will say the best Berthold City shows we ever had were Northern California. And I don't know if it has to do with John from Allegiance being in the band or just kids appreciate our style there more. But every show we play in the Bay Area,
I think in general, there's just a younger crowd there.
I mean, it's like old dude. I don't know. It's like we can play here and it'll be okay.
But look at I thought about this the other day. Look at the demographic of people going to shows. When I was a kid, it was fucking children.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally surrounded by like 15-year-olds, 14-years-olds, 16-year-olds.
Yeah. When I started going to shows,
the demographic.
Yeah, I mean, I was 14, 15.
Yeah, the demographic was extremely young because like that was the cool shit. Like that was a weird, extreme, cool thing to do as a kid.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like your shows don't necessarily need to be all ages anymore. Like you look at the demographic of a show.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's like.
Yeah, I think younger kids for sure. Like they're
like it's gotten to the point whenever we're doing shows and I see like a young kid that's like wait, you're underage? Like you're under you get it for free, you know?
Yeah.
And I do it all the time. I'm like, wait, you're actually a kid and likes hardcore? Sick, come.
Yeah. And I think that's just.
But I think demographically, I think they're the crowd there is a lot younger than it is in Southern California nowadays.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe they just have less shows. I think that's like, dude, we have so many shows here in a normal year. Like many shows where it's still like maybe an event.
Yeah,
in the Bay Area, you know what I mean? Like there's not a show every single night. Maybe, whether it's once a week or twice, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like people will turn up and support a little bit more.
So
because of that,
Gibson or Fender?
Gibson. It's like no comparison. Although I will say I played both on the new Berthold City LP. One guitar track's a Fender and the other is a Gibson.
Nice.
Slayer, Metallica.
Slayer, like no comparison. Again.
That's it. Wipeout on all of them, right?
All right, so when the world comes back and you can play a show, what's your ideal first show in Los Angeles?
The Strife show?
Yeah.
I guess
5 bands.
I don't know. What show are you gonna book? It's gonna be you're gonna book it. So what do you think?
5 bands.
If we do Cali bands,
what 5 bands you want to see on the bill?
Okay, we'll do Terror.
We'll make it free. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Free show. We'll do Terror.
Strife.
We'll do Strife. We'll get Drain down here. You guys gotta play. Waller's gotta play. You'll be in the mix. I'm aware. I'm not doing the running order. I think we need some new Piece by Piece. Right? Get Piece by Piece on there.
Please.
They're working on a record.
The last time I saw Piece by Piece was, who was it? Chopped Under Ice Plate, and I remember Corey threw his guitar. It was in LA.
Oh, I was there. Not was I there. I was playing in Piece by Piece at the time, and he hit that kid. Dude. Like the kid went in the ambulance. That was like a weird venue in LA.
Yeah, it was in Frogtown.
It was it was Trapped Under Ice and Alpha Omega.
Alpha Omega, Sabala played too.
You guys play that too?
Yeah. I was like, he tossed the guitar, and I see it go through the air, and I'm just like, oh fuck, I know this is like.
Oh, he smashed this kid.
Did I just say I saw it go straight onto this kid's face? And his name's Lucas. He's a cool kid. He's actually the cover of like an Odd Future.
Yeah.
But I see Lucas and his face just exploded, and I'm like, oh fuck, this is an actual kid. I'm like, god damn it. He's like, fuck, my mom's gonna be so mad. I'm like, all right, dude, just tell her like you're just skating or something. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, we had actually Riggs was on drums for that tour, and it was insane. I think it was only like 3 shows.
Yeah, that's the last time I saw a piece.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Last time?
I think every other time they played out.
Because we played. I went to Mexico with them, but I think we played. I thought you booked it with Death Before Dishonor at a Union. You didn't book that?
Yeah, but for some reason I think I was gone. I was like, I booked the show, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I remember that.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you need more than 5 bands in the bill. If you book the show. Dude,
do you really enjoy? Does anybody in here enjoy bills longer than 5 bands?
I don't know. It just depends. I don't know. It depends.
Dude, I didn't age well, dude. I'm like.
It depends. I don't know. Sound and Fury was fucking the last one was.
Yeah, but that's like you're fully prepared for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like for a festival, like I'm prepared that like okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah, like a 1-day free hardcore fest. I'm down.
But like, dude, nowadays like. Dude,
every band plays 15 minutes.
In my perfect world, there's like, dude, 4 bands, knock them out, let's go.
Yeah. For sure. But yeah, so right before lockdown too, so Berthold City did a Pacific Northwest tour with Change and Punitive Damage and Scowl.
Yeah. And
that was sick. So those were like the last, aside from the Terror show, those were like the last bands I got to see live.
Yeah.
And all sick bands. Like you were asking about bands I was excited about, like that Change record's insane.
That's
amazing.
awesome.
And the Punitive Damage is awesome. So.
But yeah, man, hopefully we get back to the world and play some shows, and I don't even know when that's going to be. But whenever it is,
hey, we'll do a live stream. We'll get one.
Yeah, man. I think we haven't had a chance to come to Supply and Demand, but it's gonna be the dummy-proofed hardcore shit, like.
Yeah.
Venue,
Oh, it's gonna be sick. It's like the
that's
perfect.
That's the one thing I'm like, okay, as soon as we can play a show, I'm so excited to play a show here because it's like, not only can I get a drink, but it's like it's gonna be set up. Like,
yeah. Perfect.
It's like a hardcore show. Yeah, it's perfect,
Yeah.
But again, thank you for joining us today, man.
Of course.
Before we let you go, any shout outs, anything you got, you want, or also you said you want to tell anybody fuck you, you tell them fuck you, fuck Donald Trump.
Yeah, he gets a big fuck you, Mitch McConnell.
Fuck Mitch McConnell.
I mean, there's a long list. We're going through politicians.
It's either a shout out or I also call it the beef hour.
Yeah, I got no beef. I mean, aside from those, personal beefs, I got no beefs. But shout out to all my friends, bandmates that I wish would have been here with us today.
Rick finished the record.
Yeah,
please.
shout out to Rick for not finishing the record. He gets a beef actually. Let's get this record done, Rick. But I'll shout out Pepe, Chad, and Todd, Nick Jet for recording it, but not you, Rick. You don't get the shout out.
Yeah, you haven't
Until you're done.
You
We'll save it. We'll keep that on ice. When the record's done, you get your special shout out.
Oh, man.
And that's it.
Well, dude.
Thanks for watching.
It's to have you. Dude, I can't wait to see Strife again. Strife is probably some of my fondest memories as far as going to shows.
And you missed the California takeover.
I know, dude. I was so bummed. This is bullshit, dude. I was at work. I had to work. So
that was a good one. That was a good. If we were gonna go out with like a last show, the world's over. Like maybe Strife doesn't play again. That's
that could be it. You
yeah,
know?
I mean that's the perfect one. So I'm glad if anyone was there. I hope you guys felt the same.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week with some more live bands. Next week we have Sepultura.
There you go, the boys.
Graf Warlock, who never plays, so I'm stoked to see them.
Yeah.
And then Dower.
Nice.
Local metal band. They'll fucking kill it. All right. Peace out.
Bye. Yeah, I didn't mention it. So I don't know.